Hi everybody, my name is Joey. I use he, him pronouns. This is Charlene. She uses she, her pronouns. We're here to invite you to the Digital Social Action Program. So the Digital Social Action Program is a program created by Canvas Arts Action Programs and is generously sponsored by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. We're an online program that meets and talks about different social topics in our lives, as well as doing a lot of really cool crafts. So if you were lucky enough to have joined us this week, we were talking all about community. How community is a really important thing to be thinking about right now, because we're all a little bit further away from each other than we'd like. So I have two awesome crafts to show us this week that both have to do with creating a sense of community by decorating the fronts of our houses. So as people are walking down the street, if they're feeling a little bit lonely or isolated, they can look at our art and feel inspired, feel joy, feel supported, and feel that amazing sense of community. Isn't that right, Charlene? Yeah, cool. So the first craft that we have to show you is how to make some beautiful signs for the front of our house. Let's get into it. So there's only a few things that we're going to need for this craft. A pair of scissors, some sticky tape or anything sticky, and a little bit of string. And of course our markers. Now, learn from me, don't be a silly goose, because somebody forgot to put their lid on one of the markers. And now, that one's toast. Can't use them anymore. A little bit bummed. It's okay though. I'm also just using any kind of construction paper. These were the ones that I had around my house. Even though they're a little dark, I still think that they're gonna make a pretty cool flag. So before I begin any craft project, I like to just do a little tiny bit of planning, just so I know where my head's going. So the first question I had to ask myself when making my banner was, what kind of flag shape do I want to have? There's a bunch of different possibilities, they're really endless, but I just drew down a few quick ones that I thought could look pretty cool. I have a triangle, one that kind of looks like a fishtail, which I think is pretty neat. That blue one that I just colored in almost looks like it's waving in the wind, which I thought was really cool and could have been a really cool flag. And then just some other fun shapes that I thought would be kind of silly or fun. The second question I had to ask myself was, what do I want my banner to actually say? So you have to remember that these are going to be on the street and that people walking by, we want to send them a message of community and acceptance. I chose the phrase, alone but together. I thought that was a pretty cool thing that maybe if somebody was feeling a little bit down or feeling a little bit isolated, they could see that, maybe feel a little bit better. Yeah. So let's get started. So the first thing that I decided to do is I was going to use this piece of purple paper to come up with all my bases for my flags. So I was being silly again, and I thought I only needed 8 pieces, even though I needed 11. And I was being even more silly because I already decided that I didn't want to do a standard shape. I wanted to go with the fishtail. I chose this shape because I thought it was the most interesting, and what I've done is I just folded this piece of paper 4 times, so when I cut it out, I would have 8 identical pieces. So these 8 pieces are going to be the tiny little bases for my flags. Because these flags are pretty dark and purple, I wanted to add some white accents onto it. So I just used this cream piece of paper and I chopped out 8 other tiny circles. And as you can see here, all you gotta do is pop a little bit of glue on it. I thought this would be nice to add because if somebody was walking past and it was a little bit later out or it wasn't a very bright day, they would still be able to read my sign pretty easily. So you can decorate your flags any way that you want. I think that you can really get creative with this process, try out some different things. You could make these circles stars or other triangles. You can make them look like tiny sandwiches if you wanted to. The possibilities are pretty much endless. So along this process, I realized at this point that I was the biggest silly goose on the street, and I don't have enough shapes. So I had to get a little bit extra creative, one that wasn't originally in my plan, because I had run out of purple paper. So I was going to finish off the rest of my shapes with black. So I finished off the rest of my shapes. I think they looked pretty cool. I actually ended up really liking the two different colors that I chose. I think that they make the whole design just a little bit more interesting. So maybe that's something you can experiment with your own flags. So the last step of this craft is just to finish off with your letters. I decided to use a dark purple just because I thought it would look nice with the purple, black, and cream colors I already had going on. Be sure that you have a marker that isn't fading. I had to go through a few, probably because, again, I'm a silly goose and forgot to put my lids on. Let's see who can notice when I'm making a mistake, though. 3, 2, oh no. Yeah, didn't feel very good about that. I wasn't paying attention, but it's okay. If you make a mistake, you just work through it. So I just continued on filling in the rest of the letters, making extra sure that I was alternating my colors and that I wasn't making any more silly mistakes. And yeah. So there's the one, but you just use the other side. So the very last step of this craft is we just gotta attach it to our string. So I went and measured out the window that I wanted to hang my banner in, and that's how I chose to cut the string to size. You should always give yourself a little bit extra though, because you can always trim your string, but sadly you can't really make it longer. So snip snip. The very last part is we just gotta tape them on. So start off with your first letter, and you're gonna do this process right to left. So taping all of your letters right to left. It'll feel a little bit backwards, but if you get confused, just flip over your work and check it to make sure that you're still on the right track. So when I put the tape, I just had the string a little bit lower than the very top of my flag pieces. That way so it hung really nicely and it was extra secure, since you want these to last. You don't want to have any of your little pieces falling off. So I just repeated this process until all of my letters were on. As you can see, the gap between the words, because I had the words alone but together, I wanted to make sure that people could see that. And so I left one gap in between each of those words. If you don't like the look of the gap, you could always put in just a blank banner as well. That'd probably look pretty cool too. Oh, there you can see my messed up one. So now that that's all finished, we're all done. Thumbs up. Cool, so it's as easy as that. This is my finished product. I really love the way it turned out. I think it looks super cool, really fun, really easy to make. And I think the coolest part about this project is you can make this say anything you want, absolutely anything. If you have a favorite saying, if you want to decorate your room with it, that's really cool too. But I think that these going in front of our houses are going to look really awesome and really show a lot of support to those folks who are feeling a little bit left out. So I'm going to hang this up in a moment, but let's get started onto our second craft, learning how to make some giant paper flowers, okay? So for this craft, we're only going to need a few things: a pair of scissors, any kind of cardboard box, some type of stake. I use chopsticks for this, but you could really use anything. You want some different kinds of markers. I found Sharpie-based markers work really well, and a bit of tape, and then some different colored construction paper. Whatever you have laying around will work fine. So your first step is you gotta check your box, make sure there's no extra crackers in it. and then you just want to flatten it out. You want a nice flat surface, so for our next step, you can draw a circle. I used a bowl. It's a little bit of a cheat, but that way I ended up with a really nice symmetrical circle. So you just want to cut that shape out so you can get ready for your next step. This is actually going to be the center of our flower, so you want to have it a nice color. I really wanted to have yellow, and I didn't have any yellow construction paper left in my house, so I decided to get a little bit creative and just use some yellow paint that was lying around. This is totally optional. Sometimes paint can get a little bit messy, so if you have some construction paper that matches the color that you'd like, feel free to use that. Next, we have to design the image that's going to go into the center of our flower. I had made a few already that had some faces on it, so I thought it'd be cool to write a message in the center of this flower instead. The message I chose for this flower is "Keep your head up." I thought it was a really cool thing, especially something with flowers, the way that they face the sun and are always looking upwards. I thought it was a really beautiful thing. Maybe if somebody saw, it would remind them that they're not alone and that we gotta stay positive in these times. I used a Sharpie for this because I found trying to use a regular marker on top of the paint didn't work that well. Again, if you were using construction for that last step, I don't know why any marker wouldn't work on it. So the next part that we have to make is our petals. So I just used some white paper because I thought with the yellow it would look the most like a daisy. If you see here, this is my easiest way to draw a petal shape. You just draw a standard circle and then halfway through that circle a triangle. I also folded up this paper so I would end up with multiples. As you can see here, I did it a few times, so I ended up with a lot of petals. Probably even maybe a few more petals than I would finally need. So now take your center of your flower, you're just gonna pop it over, and all you have to do now is just tape them up. So you want to take the pointed edge of your petals and just place them about an inch into your flower, just so they're nice and secure. And start on one end and just go around, place out your flowers. I probably could have spent a little bit more time placing my flowers. Towards the end they got a little bit smushed and I found I didn't have room for all of them, but even though I had a little bit less room than I would have wanted, I still wanted to use all my petals, so I just stuck them all on there. But I still think it turned out pretty cute. The last thing that I noticed that I wanted to change was you could still see my outline from when I traced with the bowl, so I just grabbed my Sharpie marker and gave my flower a little bit of definition. I think this helped in the long run to really make the center of the flower pop. The last thing you have to do is just attach your stake. I just used a little bit of tape. Because the tops of the flowers are so light, this works fine. So this is the smallest size flower that you can make. I'm going to show you in a moment all the different ones I made, and here I am trying to show off my work even though I'm not in frame. Silly goose. So that was super simple. This was my finished product. I think it turned out really cool. I love all the petals. And I love that I've attached this stake so I can actually just go and pop this right into the soft earth in front of my house. So this one's a really cool one, especially because you can make this look so many different ways. This week at the Digital Social Action Program I actually made this flower quite a few times, so I'm going to show you a few other ones that I've made. I really like this one. It has a big silly face on it. You could do something as simple as that. I also started playing around with the pattern of all the petals. Oh, that's a little bit of a tongue twister. The pattern of the petals on my flowers and made this really cute guy right here. I then started making some that were a little bit larger. So if you look at this guy, he's even bigger. And what I've done with these folks here is I attached them to old broom handles that I had laying around your house. Be sure to ask your parents first before stealing all their brooms, but sticking these at eye level in my lawn, which I'll show you in 1 second. So now that we have our flowers and our flags, let's go decorate the front of our house. So thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed these crafts. Maybe you'll get a chance to try them yourselves. I think that creating art is such a powerful way to remind folks that there is community, even though we are a little bit further away than we would like to be. If you do end up making any of the crafts that you've seen today, I hope that you have the opportunity to share them on your social media. If you do, Charlene and I would love if you use the hashtag #SpeakOut, as well as the hashtag Digital Social Action Program, or hashtag DSAP for short, DSAP. I hope to see you next week. Next week we're going to be diving into the wonderful worlds of sustainability and talking all things recycling. So we hope to see you then. Bye-bye!